In 2021, of the 5 military takeovers that occurred around the world, 4 were in Africa. Now, 2022 is barely kicked off, and we've seen another one in Burkina Faso. Overall, Africa has experienced more coups than any other continent since its countries gained independence.
In Mali, a group of Malian colonels first seized power in August 2020 by ousting President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. The coup followed large anti-government protests over deteriorating security, contested legislative elections, and allegations of corruption. Under pressure from Mali's West African neighbors, the junta agreed to cede power to a civilian-led interim government tasked with overseeing an 18-month transition to democratic elections in February 2022. But the coup leaders quickly clashed with the new interim president, the retired Colonel Ba Ndor, and engineered a second coup in May 2021. Colonel Assimi Goïta, who had served as interim vice president, was elevated to the presidency. Goïta's government made little progress towards organizing elections and announced late last year that it intended to delay them by up to 5 years. West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS responded earlier this month with harsh sanctions, including closing its members' borders with Mali. In Chad, the army took power in April 2021 after President Idriss Déby was killed while visiting Chadian troops fighting rebels in the north. Under Chadian law, the Speaker of Parliament should have become president, but a military council stepped in and dissolved parliament in the name of ensuring stability. Déby's son, General Mahamat Idriss Déby, was named interim president and tasked with overseeing an 18-month transition to elections. And in Guinea, Special Forces Commander Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya led a coup in September 2021 against President Alpha Condé, saying he acted because of poverty and endemic corruption in the coastal West African state. Condé had outraged his opponents the previous year by changing the constitution to circumvent term limits that would have prevented him from standing for a third term. He won a third term in the October 2020 vote. Doumbouya became interim president and promised a transition to democratic elections, but has not said when those will take place. In response to all these, ECOWAS and also international allies have imposed sanctions on junta members and their relatives. But that has seemed not to be a deterrent to coupists, especially in the light of Burkina Faso's situation. Analysts prefer the solution of good governance and political leadership as a better way of avoiding these kinds of military takeovers.
Here we have Mr. Confidence Makari, Security and Global Affairs Analyst with us now. Mr. Makari, thank you for your time on the program. It's quite worrying, this trend we're seeing, especially in a region once known as the continent's coup belt. Are military takeovers back or coming back in fashion in Africa?
Yeah, well, it has become sadly been a trend. Before we got talking, you mentioned the process I had in the past 1 year. And if there's anything they have in common is that they are French-speaking with a history of disaffection against the democratic ruling class. And so it almost looks like as though we are back to the 1990s and the 1980s, which an era which was characterized by unconstitutional across the continent.
Well, for Burkina Faso, it's interesting, though. Many analysts have said this was largely predictable, as the president has had it coming for a while, especially with the worsening security situation in the country. What are your thoughts?
In Burkina Faso, we should understand that the coup there follows the pattern of other coups. A coup making in Africa follows a particular pattern: disaffection with the ruling class, poverty, unemployment, terrible economic growth, and a lot of other things. But in 2013, the the manner in which the long-time ruler Blaise Compaoré was removed was also through the military and non-constitutional means. And the coup leader then was Colonel Isaac Zida. And so yes, one could say that that particular aspect was enough to establish a pattern that it was only a matter of time if it happened again. And given the dire situation in the country's north, especially where Islamic State affiliated militants are causing all sorts of problems, engaging in mass killings and territorial acquisitions. Yes, there is credence to the fact that the people have always said that it was only going to be a matter of time. And Burkina Faso lies on a dangerous path. It is in a very dangerous company where its neighbor, a few miles away, Mali, has experienced two coups in the last 2 years. And then to the east, you have Niger, you have several others that are also in similar concerns, in similar straits, security concerns and all. And so, yes, on that point, you could say yes.
Well, what's required to restore stability in cases like this? Because we know it's certainly not military takeovers. As shown time and time again, this just creates a continuous power struggle.
Yeah, you could say that the military is taking power for themselves, but you should also understand the reaction of the people. In all of the coups that have happened in the past 2 years or so, they were met with mass public approval. I mean, you were witness to the one that happened in Mali the other day, where the ruling junta led by the current leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, mobilized a large number of people, and they whipped up anti-French sentiment. So it follows a pattern of huge public approval for that, and then it goes on to show that yes, while the military itself might actually have the ulterior motive of taking power for themselves, for the population who would rather have a non-constitutional change of government, they would have it no other way. I mean, they are more comfortable with the military in charge than they having the democratically elected governments. And so, yes, the military could be there for their own selfish purposes, but I think the people who have the power, the legitimacy where they decide on, are actually comfortable with this whole arrangement.
Well, for regional powers like the AU and ECOWAS, do you think they are doing enough to deter the trend?
No, absolutely not. I've said this and I've written about this in several fora. I think to some extent the tide and the wave of coup d'etats have sort of overwhelmed these regional organizations, and they have been caught flat-footed, for lack of a better word. And I would say that they have this coming, but they were badly prepared for it because of the manner in which they've responded to unconstitutional changes of government. It doesn't go away from the statutory message of condemnation, asking that the coup plotters release the president in good health without harming him, and then commit to a peaceful change of peaceful transition into democracy, holding elections and everything. So the coup plotters understand this, and we've grown comfortable with telling the African Union and ECOWAS whatever they want to hear. But yes, the blame largely resides with these regional organizations. And I will tell you this, but for the mere fact that the African Union and ECOWAS has not done enough to prevent coup, these organizations lack the moral grounds to condemn them when they happen. There are so many signs that point to the fact that there is a disaffection with the ruling elite of many of these countries where the coup take place. There are unconstitutional moves, there are moves by the president or whatever head of state in charge to either illegally extend their stay in office. We saw it in Ivory Coast. We saw it in Mali, where President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, when he was alive and in office, was trying to change the constitutional courts to his own advantage. We've seen different attributes of illiberal democracies being perpetrated by many of the sitting African governments, with not a single condemnation from either the African Union or the Economic Community of West African states. So it's almost as though they always wait until when these things are boiled over and then they come out to condemn it. That is reactionary. The African Union and the ECOWAS has to taking a proactive step, in the sense that when they spot these trends that they know are going to boil over into a military involvement, they have to call it out, sanction area members, and make sure that these presidents, which are part of the ECOWAS forum, do not err from the democratic principle or do not alter the constitution to favor them.
All right, then, Security and Global Affairs Analyst Confidence McHarry, thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
Thank you for having me.